Hello Aquarius, and welcome to your in-depth monthly horoscope for August 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to briefly preview some standout features of this month, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater detail all the key influences and timings particularly relevant to your sign. Now, as we start August, there is a full moon in the sign of Aquarius. So this is very much about relationships, to be honest. And with Venus in its retrograde, rewinding the whole of this month, but also coming into a sensational clinch with the Sun in a Cazimi on the 13th, your relationship sector is absolutely totally magnified by both the full moon and that combination. But also Saturn, your traditional ruler, is opposing Mercury as this month begins, and then Uranus, your modern ruler, clashes with the Sun at the heart of this month. And then, just as the month comes to a close, we have a blue moon, and the Sturgeon moon in the sign of Pisces is going to be conjunct Saturn. So those are the key pieces of information that I need to unpack for you. So please stay with me for more. I'd like to share with you a very special opportunity. This year is absolutely racing by, and year 2024 is speeding towards us. However, if you order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast now, based on your unique birth data, I will prepare for you the rest of year 2023 free of charge. But also within my package of 30% off, you can get your character analysis report, your life roadmap. This helps you to understand the patterns that have played out in your journey so far. Some of these definitely give us opportunities, but others can be more challenging, and a more intimate understanding of these helps us to seize our potential more firmly. Please see the link beneath this video for more on this unique opportunity. So Aquarius, as August begins, there is the full moon in your sign. So the Sun is in the sign of Leo, and that's really giving you a desire to achieve a greater sense of harmony and collaboration with others. And this is accentuated because Venus is in your 7th house too. So what does the retrograde mean? Well, I think the retrograde can, particularly for people who have Venus retrograde in their natal charts, mean that essentially people take relationships more seriously. So they're not necessarily so orientated towards having to have someone. It's more about having the right connections. But Venus isn't just about relating. It's also about how we present ourselves. It can be very artistic, and of course it can be about money. But I think that partnerships, even across all those areas, are going to be a major part of this month's theme. And to be honest, because your traditional ruler Saturn is afflicting Mercury over the first 4 days, if there is a relationship where the financial equilibrium isn't quite as you'd like it to be, it could be with an employer who doesn't respect, as you see it, the contribution you make. That is something that you could feel grisly about. But the full moon can give you the push to do something about it. But then from a romantic context, you may actually be very loved up, but it's just that your joint situation at the moment may be a bit challenged, which understandably creates tension. But the good news is that Venus being in your 7th house will give you the desire to try to find solutions. Now, also, as this month begins, there is another standout angle, and it goes between Jupiter, the planet of growth, optimism, hope, faith, good luck, in your 4th house of home and family, with Mars, the planet of passion and desire, in the 8th house, which can be to do with long-term finance, but it can be to do with sex. But I think in this combination across these houses, if you are trying to do something to improve your financial situation, your self-confidence and drive can definitely be big factors to help you to improve things. But also a little bit of charm will go a long way this month. So if you need to cultivate the right contacts, because you are sometimes a little bit stubborn to play the games that other people do play, I feel that this is a month when you need to be pragmatic, particularly with Saturn's opposition to Mercury, because that can really tighten things up, either in terms of your cash flow or your mentality. So if there is a situation that you see an opportunity around, like a job that really captures your imagination, you know, do play the game. This may be a month where diplomacy and a harmonizing attitude are as important as your skill set. But Jupiter is surprisingly forging, or I should say paradoxically, also forging a square with the Sun. And because Jupiter's in your 4th house, this could see you almost try a little bit too hard to be a people pleaser, particularly around the family or particularly around someone you're very close to. So just be aware of that. Although Venus in the 7th house is very harmonizing, what we don't want to do is give away our identity by being such a people pleaser we forget who we are. But you are an Aquarius, so you're not easily going to do that, are we? Keep it between me and you. So Venus on the 7th house, mainly good, but can have a bit of a weakness. But I think the retrograde in a way can offset that tendency to be, you know, too gushy around seeing it from another person's viewpoint. But also in week 2 of this month, Jupiter's forging a terrific link with Mercury. So Mercury, afflicted by Saturn the first 4 days, then goes into its pre-retrograde shadow. It goes retrograde on the 23rd, on the 4th, but still in week 2, forging a great link to Mercury. Mercury's about commerce. It's in your 8th house, which is about the deal, and can be to do with finances, loans, investments, and so forth. But the position of Jupiter in house 4 suggests that if you do make any moves, the Taurian energy slows Jupiter's impulses down, but also the 4th house, for you personally, your sign, makes you more aware of risk when it comes to your emotional and home situation. But I think some kind of good news story can manifest through a contract, through a connection, through your ability to be good with people, which you do have that talent. So where are the challenges? Well, I've just explained that Mercury is going to be slowing down from the 4th, but also Saturn is remaining in your 2nd house in retrograde. So the cautious use of resources is going to continue to be a theme this month, and I will revisit why shortly. But you have a clash between your modern ruler, Uranus, and the Sun at the heart of this month from the 12th to the 19th, which could be much more challenging. You know, over the last couple of years, off and on, Uranus was clashing with Saturn. And of course, Saturn was in your sign at the time. And it depended on exactly where your Sun and other inner planets were in Aquarius in terms of your natal chart. But that was a really tough aspect for a lot of people with Aquarius energy or other fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, because obviously the angle's back to the position of Saturn and Uranus. So this is a bit of a reflection, because where Saturn was in your sign, your individual needs, the Sun's in your 7th house of how you connect to others. But it's also how you compete, and that's important to know. It's not all about being, you know, all sweet around the edges with the Venus alliance. It is about being rugged against the people you know you've got to take on, your rivals and competitors at work, or people that you may have to coexist with that you're not that keen on. But Uranus brings a much greater turbulence to bear. So if you're having to cohabit, for example, in a shared house where you don't really like the people, you feel there's not a lot of space, you feel quite restricted or confined, or it's nothing to do with that, you may even be living on your own and it's the isolation that's proving challenging. Or you may live in a perfectly nice house with perfectly nice people, but actually the family politics going on are having a destructive impact on your peace of mind. So something around a relationship could be challenged at the heart of this month, despite Venus and the Sun coming into that exact connection on the 13th. And it wouldn't be a surprise if it was around a more personal tie, like a family situation. So the 16th sees the new moon in your sector of relating. So for the next month, ordinarily, this would really help you to elevate your hopes in that direction. And it can still do so, but Uranus is saying to you, don't go for any relationship, a business tie or friendship, where you don't feel you can be truly your unique self. And let's be honest about it, Aquarius people really are at their best when they can be very authentic. So that's really what you've been told. But I would say it is important to know that despite the challenges that could come up around a relationship with the square between the Sun and Uranus, the link in week 1 between Venus and the North Node, so this is the first time this has happened for a very long time. The North Node's only just moved back into Aries in the middle of July. And for you, that's house 3, your immediate environment, your everyday communication. Well, those two are very sweet on one another in the first week of this month. And that's something that really could be an ace for you. But it just depends on your circumstances. So it is incredible, really, because Venus Cazimi, the Sun, can be very lovely, but because Uranus is feeding into the relationship, it can be disruptive. So the really good ties will get stronger and the weak ones could be more easily revealed. But then on the 23rd, a very big day for this month, because the Sun makes its way out of Leo into the sector of transformation for you, where it joins up with Mercury in its shadow up until that point this month, and Mars. But on the same day, Mercury goes into its full retrograde. And that will go on through to the middle of September, but it doesn't unravel fully until the end of next month. So essentially the 8th house is about shared finance, can be about where we're most invested. It can be about where we need to transform things, can be quite a phoenix part of our lives. So some things can change because with Mercury's help, particularly in its retrograde, you can decipher what people are saying in a much more penetrative way. So it doesn't matter the words they're using, as they're talking to you, you'll see like the subtext come up in your mind. That's what they really mean. So your ability to decipher and go beyond some of the stories that people tell is going to be awesome. And the retrograde with Mercury will help you, but just be aware if you are waiting for a drawdown on some kind of loan or a pension, there could inevitably be a bit of a glitch, simply because that's what Mercury does. But Mercury retrograde also gives us an opportunity to think again about things. So when it comes to marshalling your longer term resources or a pension plan, is everything paid up? When is the due date? Is there any way that you can work with this to squeeze more out of your asset, say through an annuity if you're older? Is there a property situation that you can exploit? Is refinancing viable at the moment with the higher interest rates? How can you move things around in a shrewd way? That's the practical side of the 8th house, but there is a psychological side. This part of astrology is very much about rebirth. So if there is something that needs to make way in your life, it's going to be revealed, I feel, particularly by the end of September, when the retrograde fully unravels. Also, on the 28th, Mars moves out of this intense, rather confrontational 8th house, where it is quite full on when it comes to the more amorous side of life, but it moves into the sector of adventure, the 9th house, higher truths, travel, international interests, getting out and about and being a bit more rugged in the great outdoors, or using your mind in a bit of a keener way. So that's going to be in your 9th house, your sister air sign of Libra, for 6 weeks. But Uranus, your modern ruler, itself goes into retrograde through to the 27th of January next year. And it's possible that a home situation will change during that period, but it could change for the better, because maybe if you have been really finding restriction or restraint, maybe being locked in during COVID was probably intolerable. It was for most of us. But I feel that Uranus is going to help you to understand the truth of your emotional needs a lot more during the retrograde. But then on the 31st, we have the blue moon, the sturgeon moon, in the sign of Pisces, aligned with your traditional ruler of Saturn. So as I mentioned at the outset, Saturn has a big say this month, right at the start of the month, right at the end of the month. And it's interesting because if there is a vulnerability around your everyday finance, it could be revealed on the back of this blue moon. But I think what Mars can do, having burst as it has into the 9th house, and also because it's in a quincunx, a 150 angle with Saturn, which isn't very coordinated, but what it can do is give you a lot of desire for new knowledge, or to free yourself from something that is really dragging you down. So, for example, you know, if you've been financing something that you're not really enjoying anymore because it's just too expensive, such as a vehicle, you may decide to give up that vehicle, sell it off, pay off the finance on it, and get something smaller and cheaper, because that actually will liberate you from the burden. So something can come out of that blue moon that can be very constructive and positive, but big transformations are on their way. It's also possible that your skill in terms of marshalling resources that maybe you've never taken seriously enough because you see yourself more as an idealist, maybe you've got an emerging understanding of being a bit craftier and a bit shrewder about marshalling things more cannily, and that is something to also embrace too. So this is definitely a month when there can be some exquisite romantic or relationship interludes or interchanges, but also I think there can be a shakeout from any relationship that's not really serving its greater purpose for you. And then as the month goes on, it may feel that you're going through some deep transformations, which may feel uncomfortable, but they're definitely clearing the space, if that happens for you personally, for new and fresh energy to come in, which will become more obvious from the autumnal equinox and when the sun moves into your sister sign of Libra, which of course is next month, and Mars is trailing ablaze, ready, preparing the way for you. So it's the advanced core, searching out possibilities and just making sure that you have all the information you need future forwards to plan your moves in a really dynamic and exciting way. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Aquarius. Thank you so much for joining me. Please like, share, comment or subscribe.